it just So I actually spoke to a buddy of mine with whom I used to play WoW back in the day, back in the days of Kata, actually still. And I told him about how I started Classic for the second time, and he kind of told me like, well, he asked me why I'm playing Classic again. It's a super grindy game, and I'm kind of too late to the game since TBC is coming out, which I want to get to later also. Um, but essentially, after that discussion with him, I kind of like had an idea. I was like, hey, maybe I should. Well, I'm looking for content anyway, so I'm just gonna be real with you guys. I figured that I would continue the discussion that I had with him on my own today on my stream. So the primary reason that I really came back to Classic was because I was actually looking for a video game that I could play that would have some actual meaningful content. Now, what does meaningful content really mean? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still talking about a video game here. Um, but for me, a game that has meaningful content is not necessarily a game that has, like, a crazy story or anything like that, but more rather just a game that is fun to play. Because if it isn't fun, I'm not going to come back to play it, right? So, for me, meaningful content is content that I can come back to day in and day out to play again and again without it being repetitive. Now, a lot of people say that WoW Classic is extremely repetitive because you kind of just go in, grind and kill mobs, do quests, blah 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 blah, which is actually for the most part true. Um, Essentially, the format is the same thing day in and day out, but at the same time, it's also extremely varied because you're not just doing the exact same thing day in and day out. I mean, the the objectiveness would or an objective view would say that yes, you are just killing mobs and doing quests, right? I mean, it's not really meaningful, but you transition from zone to zone, and your progress actually means something, and that's kind of what I really took away from my first run at Classic, is that playing the game and actually getting stuff done means something. Um, Whether it's just getting another level or advancing your gear or just getting to a new zone, getting to the next level so that more quests open up. All that kind of small stuff matters. And that's actually really the reason why I switched over to or started playing Classic again. Because I was looking for a game that would actually bring me some sense of fulfillment um, with my progress within the game. That's one of the biggest things I felt when I first played Classic. That stood out to me is that like the things that I do here actually mean something. Is it repetitive? Yes, I think if anyone comes out and says that WoW isn't, or WoW Classic rather, isn't an extremely repetitive game, I would say that they're just lying out their teeth. Because it is, but at the same time, and this is my just my subjective opinion, the leveling is kind of the like half of the game. It's half of the experience that you make. It's what makes the game fun, in my opinion, because like I said in my stream about kind of my WoW career up to this point, if you want to call it that, um, I actually do have some experience with boosting characters. I've boosted a couple characters in Warlords of Draenor and in Legion. I boosted two characters. Um, and I kind of realized right away that like that really wasn't all that much fun for me. Not because any of the end-game content was bad. I mean, it was flashy and stuff, but boosting a character kind of took away so much of the immersion and the bond to that character for me. Um, and how is that different than in Classic? Well, first of all, I wouldn't boost a character in Classic because, like I said, half of the game, in my eyes, is getting to 60 and, doing all the stuff that you gotta do, gearing up, meeting people, all that good stuff. And the point is that in Classic, your leveling experience actually matters. And that's kind of what also drew me away from retail WoW, because I was honestly thinking like, okay, if I'm gonna start playing WoW again, I might as well do Shadowlands because it's the newest expansion. Let's see how retail has developed. But like in hindsight, I don't know, for some reason it didn't attract me because I sort of thought to myself like, okay, so if I'm going to level from a fresh tune all the way to max, I haven't been following Shadowlands exactly, but as far as I remember, especially the way that it was in WoD and in Kata, you kind of spent a lot of time like leveling through content that wasn't relevant anymore. Um, and so while the leveling process was so fun, it just kind of like didn't really make any sense because you were like, well, like what I'm doing right now isn't relevant at all because it's just like not part of the game. And that's kind of the point in the discussion where I realized like, yeah, I'm also kind of late to the game because realistically, by the time that I get I get to 60 on this character and geared and all that stuff, most of the PvE content, like I hope I'm gonna get it done before TBC comes out, but I don't know. We just have to see. Um, but yeah, most of the content is not going to be relevant anymore, which is actually okay for me because I know that I still have some time to enjoy vanilla as it is, and then once TBC comes out, I can actually be amongst like some of the people who get up to the content. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna kid myself and say that I'm gonna be amongst the first because I know that I just know that I won't be. To start like to start rating and stuff in TBC, but why not? I mean, right now the content is still relevant, so that's essentially what was the defining factor for me as to why I switched over to Classic, because the stuff that I would be going through in the leveling process was actually like the content that's current.